manager of the European Union Southeast Asia CCCA CORSIA project. And I'm pleased to see so many loyal participants to our format. So thanks for joining, and I'm looking forward to the hour that we have together. I'm not trying to go to the next slide, which is actually a problem for me. That is, my computer is not responding. 1 second, please. Here we go. Today, we are continuing the subject of the role of the airports in the upscaling of SAF. We have been together some weeks ago speaking with the Rome International Airport, and we have today two organizations. First, the Airport Council International, ACI, and Tokyo Narita International Airport, sharing their experiences with us. Let me briefly give you a short context of this format. This is part of our European Union Southeast Asia CCCA CORSIA project, a project funded by the European Union and aiming to support the ASEAN member states in the reduction of CO2 emissions. Our areas of actions are actually CORSIA implementation, as the name of the project is saying it. We are supporting on state action plans, the implementation of emission data management systems, and advisory on climate change policies. Some practicalities for today. Please feel free to address any questions that you have in the Slido application at the bottom right corner of your screen. About the team, we are at EASA 3 people. It is myself, Ralph, Santiago Hayaleva, who's also with us, a project manager, and Rebecca, who's supporting us on communication and administration. So please don't hesitate. If you have any questions, make use of the Slido application. You can access this application through this QR code here and enter the passcode uniform 50 Victor X-ray 4. Uniform 50 Victor X-ray 4. The subject today, the role of the airports in the SAF upscale. We have, as said before, Airport Council International Asia Pacific region presenting us the airport's perspective, reflecting the challenges and opportunities in the Asia Pacific region, accompanied by Tokyo Narita International Airport, NRT, authority, giving us an insight into the actual implementation of SAF, the experiences they have been making so far. Tokyo Narita, they have started last year already to supply an overseas airline with sustainable aviation fuels. And together with partners, NRT has established a domestic SAF supply chain spanning from the SAF import and the quality control to the delivery, as well as a refueling network for the aircrafts themselves. Japan is committed, and Tokyo Narita is committed to support Japan to achieve the very ambitious target of 10% SAF use by 2030, which is in 7 years' time, which is really not a lot of time ahead of us. So Tokyo Narita will share their experiences on how the government and the aviation industry can work closely together to increase SAF supply and the availability at airports, so it can be adapted broadly. So I'm very curious to see how Tokyo Narita is actually implementing it. These were the organizations, but our speakers today from these organizations are first Ken Lau. Ken has been with Asia Pacific since January 2012. So if I'm not mistaken, Ken, you have celebrated your 11th anniversary last month in the organization. You're responsible for the coordination of environment and airport IT, and he's promoting cooperation amongst the airports in the entire Asia Pacific region and beyond. He's the Secretariat of ACI, Asia Pacific Regional Environment Committee, and the ACI Asia Pacific Regional Airport Information Technology Liaison Group. He's also managing airport carbon accreditation in the Asia Pacific region, covering, as I said before, not only Southeast Asia, covering airport members from the Middle East, Mongolia, down to Australia and New Zealand. Ken's background includes chemical engineering, environmental plant management. He was responsible for various construction projects. He's a certified environmental officer, and he was responsible to maintain good safety, health, and environment of environmental treatment plans. Ken, if I've missed anything, please, you have the floor very soon. Please correct anything that I might have said wrong. The second person is Mr. Takahiro OHMIYA. Takahiro joined the new Tokyo International Airport Authority, currently called Narita International Airport Corporation, NAA, already in 2002, so 21 years from now, 21 years ago. Takahiro has been involved in various fields and projects related to the planning, construction, and operation of machinery and fueling facilities at Narita Airport, as well as environmental measures. He has an extensive experience in contributing to the development of the airport. He is currently working at the business group of the refueling business department in charge of facility maintenance to promote the introduction of SAF at Narita Airport. Takahiro's team is working with the government, the airlines, and the fuel suppliers to consider the promotion of the introduction of sustainable aviation fuels. Before I hand over the floor first to Ken, let me again, Takahiro, Ken, thank you very much for donating your time, and to the audience. The nice thing, or what I like very much about this format, is that it is not a media show. We are all, no one of us is a media professional, including myself, if you might have already noticed. And we are trying our best to share experiences from colleagues to colleagues as good as we can, and as interactive as we can. So please be invited to share any questions that you might have in the tool. We come back to your questions after the presentations. And talking about presentations, Ken, if I may, I would like to hand over the floor straight to you. So please, ready if you are.
Thanks, Rolf. Let me try to share my screen. Oh, hang on. Yep. Okay, just checking if everyone's seeing my screen. Great, thank you. Thank you for your kind introduction, Rolf. And yes, reminded me for my 11th year's anniversary. That's a happy time. So yes, I'm going to give you an overview from an Asia-Pacific airports perspective in terms of SAF uptake. To be frank, in our region, compared to other, like the European region, the SAF uptake might not be as aggressive, I say, if I may, because there is no regulations or necessarily fund like what the ACI have done. So I'm not complaining, but we always want to move ahead towards the direction of improving SAF uptake in an airport perspective. Reasons being, okay. So that comes to the agenda. So I'll just give you 2 slides on the introduction of ACI, and reason being the airport's decarbonization, and the scope 3 would be part of it, which means SAF is an important tool for the whole decarbonization agenda. I will elaborate later on. So first few slides of Airport Council International. We are a trade association for airports, and we're the voice of airports worldwide, and we lead, represent, and serve the global airport community. But we have 5 regions, so I mainly focus on the region that we are in. From the introduction, it's explained it covers quite a lot of the diversity, the geographically. So it's the largest area geographically that we cover, and we cover 47 countries with 129 members and 620 airports being that we need to serve. So we have so many governments and different cultures and political systems. So it's things could be hard in terms of the efficacies and etc. But relatively for decarbonization agenda, it is relatively okay in a way that I would show you later on the slide, because it's a global issue that we have agreed on, and the directions is clear. So a mix of slides here, and just want you to focus on the picture on the right. So all start from UNFCCC's IPCC, the reports to claim that it's definitely climate is coming, it's real, it's happening, and we have to act now. And it says all sectors need to act now, and we have been net zero carbon by 2050. All sectors, no matter it's airports, airlines, it's everywhere. So we started out in ACI in 2019 to have completed a study on long-term carbon goal, and it was concluded that airports having a goal, net zero goal at 2050, it's feasible. So we made a pledge in, as show on the top here, ACI member airports at a global level commit to reach net zero by 2050. But we urge governments to provide the necessary support in this endeavor. Why? Because most of the decarbonization efforts would need to be at the electricity grid that airports cannot control. So there is a lot of efficacies there that needs to be done. Further on, we had a resolution in the Asia Pacific urge airports to voluntarily commit to net zero carbon emission, develop action plans to meet this commitment, and embed low carbon technologies and resource efficiencies into new and existing operations and infrastructure. Of course, urging governments to support to decarbonize the electricity grid as well, and renewable energy at airports. And finally, a few months ago, in October last year, the ICAO long-term aspiration goal of net zero 2050 has realized, which away, so we are all in the same page. So we all now have the instrument to actually work together toward the goal. So in the region, we try to register as much as possible in how the Asia Pacific and Middle East airports or states that our airports serve have the pledges. If you can notice here, the years of pledges are different. So it's pretty hard for us to try to manage, but we totally understand that each state or country will have their challenges and opportunities. But also what complicates the issue is the net zero and carbon neutrality definition is still not very clear. Now for airports, we also registered that we have 23 airports in the region that have pledged before 2050 to become net zero. And we have quite a lot that have pledged for 2030, before 2030, mainly from Australia, India, and New Zealand. Just to note that we have 65, most of which within this list are in the airport carbon accreditation that I'm going to elaborate later on. For the regional office, we also advocate to governments, especially for ICAO, Middle East, ICAO, Asia Pacific, and there's some meetings. We submit papers in showing how airports are decarbonized, and urge the whole aviation community to do the same. The flagship program of airport carbon accreditation, by now, we have nearly 50% of global coverage participate in this. We package this as a go-to program for airports who want to decarbonize, and we have different levels of, let's say, level of hardship in how to achieve different levels. But what I want to raise or flag up here is the level 4 at the bottom, level 4+, which recognize airports in planning and having necessary milestones and roadmaps to reach net zero. And that was launched in 2020. Now, other thing that we did last year was a green airport recognition. We recognized 12 airports submitted their best practices, and in total there was 23. We made that into case studies booklet as publication, so other airports can learn from these best practices in carbon management. And I said about the electricity grid, but if the airport cannot actually convince the electricity grid to green or decarbonize as soon as they want it, the only way is to produce renewable energy at their airport. So we also have a guidance document for in draft for airports to implement solar PV. In the coming months, we also have the workshop to build capacity in best practices in how to in the net zero agenda to let them know how to set airport long-term carbon goal, produce airport roadmaps to reach net zero carbon emission, address scope 3 emission, which is what I'm going to elaborate on. That is relevant to the topic today, which is SAF, and also the obtain state and green finance for airport decarbonization. And we're also looking into new services in support airport reaching net zero. So back to the main topic now. So this is what's shown in the airport carbon accreditation. It covers all the areas of how and where the carbon emission is going to be. Now, net zero and scope 3 for airport is becoming more important now, even though within the levels I mentioned, there are scope 3s already accounted for, the most relevant ones. So for example, aircraft ground movements, auxiliary powers, and staff travel, etc. in those orange bits. But when we are looking into a new level for actually recognizing airport to reach net zero, we notice that internationally, the standards are not streamlined in terms of whether the scope 3 emissions are in the same page. So we are specifically this year working on what is most relevant according to the international standard to the definition of net zero. And I'm going to elaborate that more in the next slide. But some airports are already investigating into implementing scope 3 emission strategy, even in our region. Now, I've counted like one or two that I know. Now, another complicated slide. So the greenhouse gas protocol has a standard in terms of reporting on a corporate value chain, the scope 3, which means for airports, the carbon emission that they cannot control but can influence. And you see a lot of things here, and there's supposed to be 15 categories, and we identified, I think, 12 is going to be relatively relevant. And then if you see the green boxes, like sewage treatment, staff business travel, the cargoes, the land transport traffic, it's already covered in the airport carbon accreditation program. Now, part of it is also the reporting of the aircraft LTO, for example. It's already in the program, but we want to, let's say, elaborate that if we are going to create a higher level, so that it will be harder and more robust level for airports to be recognized with. Now, just pinpoint to the circle I highlighted in this slide, the aircraft full flight that airports will need to be reporting in. And of course, eventually, airports will have to facilitate and support the airlines in reducing those part of carbon emission. So how SAF could be implemented at airports. I said in the beginning, it's relatively not that advanced, but we are urging airports to facilitate the uptake of SAF, and us in regional office also have been helping Singapore government in their plans of the net zero, part of which is how SAF could be uptake and also how the airport can actually facilitate this So this is just a general slide to emphasize that multi-sector collaboration will play a critical role in ensuring the resilient aviation ecosystem that is capable of achieving global sustainability goal, net zero of 2050. So the graphics on the right, it's actually showcase what we did in the global level. We had two guidance documents, and I think 2 years back, in helping airports to at least get their mindset in how to integrate of hydrogen aircraft into air transport system, and then the one on the right, integration of SAF into the airport transport air transport system, and which I'm going to have a deeper dive on the content highlighted here. So the guidance document actually looked into whether there's similarities and major difference in terms of the conventional fuel for aircraft and SAF, and of course explaining why it's a zero or non-CO2 emission of SAF due to its life cycle, obviously, and also not digging into deep in terms of why it cannot be blended 100%. I think I'll leave that to the aircraft manufacturer, and I'm sure you had some insights in previous webinars. So it needs to be blended. That's airports need to know. And the bottom right graphic shows different scenarios in terms of how SAF could be blended, but it all comes to a conclusion from the guidance document that it should be blended outside of the airport in terms of safety considerations and space availability at airports. So the key summary points of the guidance document I highlighted in red as well, that airports should familiarize with the SAF and identify the key stakeholders and the current suppliers, of course, but a creation of work group collaborate with from the beginning, because this is you would need every comment or ideas or knowledge or experience from these stakeholders in order to make this let's say project as successful as it needs to be. And then the process of test flights, if there's pilots flights, etc., airports should be aggressively contributing their participation. So as I mentioned, SAF it should be arriving blended to minimize airport infrastructure requirements. Now the level, the percentage of blended fuel, it's really depend on how the technologies developed, how and whether the flight fleets are capable to do. And I don't see there is going to be different blends available for flights. So it has to be worked out in the airport or regionally or globally. Now, booking claim system is a need. It is necessary. It is unavoidable because it's neither feasible nor sustainable for SAF availability at all airports. So it will be impossible for that. So eventually we anticipate we'll get a key SAF hub airport to actually supply those SAF for everyone, and then there is booking claim system for everyone to achieve the whatever goal that the airlines needed within the airport. So we recognize that barriers still exist and need to be quickly overcome, and close collaboration and coordination is definitely needed. So looking ahead, aside from airport, multi-stakeholders collaboration with governments, with airlines, fuel suppliers, and manufacturers is definitely the key for SAF uptake and SAF infrastructure at airports. So with that, I will conclude my presentation, and thank you for your attention. And I'll welcome any questions in Slido, or even you could email me if you need. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ken. Let me just for the audience, my computer problems continued. So sometimes I don't have even cursor control. So Santi, you have to be my backup today. So in case everything crashes, you have to take over. Excuse me. I haven't also seen any questions, but one question I received in the meantime, thanks, Santi, was whether the presentations are shared with the audience. And this is what we are going to do when we have finished the webinar. We are going to share the recording of the session and the presentations on our project website. So we need maybe 2-3 days, and then you can have you can download the information from there. So if Takahiro is ready to take over and push his presentation through, then I would say, Takahiro, the floor is yours. And as I haven't seen any questions anyway, due to technical reasons, maybe we do that at the very end, and I have to see also with Santi whether he has traced any questions. So nevertheless, please, if you have anything, don't give up and send them to us. Takahiro, the floor is yours. You can turn on the video, the audio, and you can share your presentation with us. Yeah, it's coming in. It's not in presentation mode yet, Takahiro.
Okay.
Now it's in full presentation. Looking very good. Please.
Okay. My name is Takahiro OHMIYA from Aviation Fuel Business Department, Narita International Airport. I am in charge of promoting implementation of SAF at Narita Airport. I'm sorry, I cannot speak English very well. However, thank you very much today for giving me such an opportunity to make presentation. Well, I would like to start to explain our achievement of producing SAF so far. At first, I introduced some movements of decarbonization at aviation industry in Japan. Formulated mid-long-term target for CO2 emission reduction one after another by several airport organizations. As for the airline's achievement, JAL and ANA jointly declared to scope increase of SAF mixture by 10% till 2030. The government established a SAF study group consisting of academic experts and industry officials. Set the target of replacing 10% of fuel used by Japanese airlines with SAF by 2030. Those achievements for decarbonization have been accelerated in recent years. Here is some initiatives of SAF by Japan governments. Government has established the Public-Private Committee for SAF in April 2022. The purpose is to manufacture price competitive domestically produced SAFs and to create a supply chain in cooperation with fuel suppliers and airlines. A manufacturing working group and logistic group have been set under the Public-Private Council to discuss technical issues. We, NAA, participate in discussion as a member of Public-Private Council and the Logistic Working Group. Here is one of example of achievement in the Logistic Working Group. As a trial by Japan's Ministry of Land, Infrastructure, Transport and Tourism, Itochu plans to blend nested meat SAF with Fuji oil. It will be a demonstration project to establish the meat SAF supply chain in Japan. The mixed SAF will transported to Chubb International Airport, where it will be refueled using hydrant for Japan's flight inspection aircraft. Next, I would like to introduce the plans for SAF manufacturing in Japan. There are three major oil foresters in Japan, and the Cosmo Oil manufacturer has announced that it will start manufacturing SAF from 2025. Each company is aiming to manufacture SAF in Japan and is promoting various research and development using government subsidies. Next, I would like to introduce the environmental initiatives that Narita Airport has taken so far. There was a history of intensifying protests by local resistance before the opening of Narita Airport. Based such a historical reflection, Narita Airport has implemented meticulous measures against aircraft noise since the opening of the airport. Privatized in 2004 with consideration for the environment as a management vision, we formulated a basic environmental policy and eco-airport basic plan. In 2010, we formulated the eco-airport vision as medium to long-term goals. In 2018, it became the first airport in Japan to acquire level 3 of ACI airport carbon certification program. In this way, Narita Airport has been implementing various measures to reduce environmental impact, including climate change. Sustainable Narita 2050 was based on this background and history as a new framework for reducing Narita Airport's environmental impact and was announced in March 2021. Its goal is set long-term targets for decarbonization, including net zero emission for scope 1 and 2, and a 50% reduction in emissions that including scope 3. This is the first initiative by an airport operator in Japan to set a net zero target that does not include carbon offset, and to set numerical targets that also cover emissions from stakeholders. We consider this an ambitious target setting since at the time of development, we had reviewed the target of several major airports, including some overseas airports, but had not set any numerical targets that including Scope 3. In addition, airports had set a mid-term goal of 30% reduction in Scope 1 and 2 emissions, and 30% reduction in overall airport emissions per arrival and departure cycle. Narita Airport produced around 1.2 million tons of CO2 fiscal 2019 before COVID. And more than 10% of that was produced by our corporate group. That is to say, Scope 1 and 2. The remaining 90% came from stakeholder Scope 3. As shown the right side of slide, the main emission from the group are from fuel conversion at energy plants and electricity purchases, which are areas that airport operators can control themselves and are therefore able to achieve reduction. And 90% of Narita Airport CO2 emissions are Scope 3 and mostly aircraft. Thus, it is clearly obvious that efforts related to aircraft are extremely important, and that cooperation with airlines with other parties is essential to achieve reduction. In addition to that, I can't overlook emissions from GSEs and passenger access. In both groups of initiatives, there is a limit to what the airport operator can do on its own. And still strengthening collaboration with stakeholders is necessary to achieve an overall reduction of emissions in Scope 1 to 3. In 2005, Narita Airport organized the Sustainable Narita Promotion Council with related businesses and organizations to promote the reduction of environmental impact throughout the airport. This is introduction of advanced technology, Sustainable Narita 2050 initiative. And this next action and airport expansion projects, and working with stakeholders. Slide 11 to 13 explain about Sustainable Narita 2050. If you have time, please check them later. Finally, we will introduce an overview of the fueling facilities at Narita Airport and an example of introduction of SAF. Narita Airport is located in inland. Jet fuel manufacture in Japan is transported Chiba Port by tanker. It's transported from Chiba Port to Narita Airport through 47-kilometer pipelines. Since the opening of Narita Airport, the amount of refueling have been steadily increasing among with the number of departure and arrival, reaching around 6 million kiloliters in 2004. Since then, while the number of takeoff and landing has increased, the amount of refueling has remained flat due to the reduction in fuel consumption and size of aircraft. The pie chart on the right shows is share of refueling volume in Japan at Narita Airport. Narita Airport shares more than half of total fuel amount of international flight departing from Japan. Thus, promoting the introduction of SAF at Narita Airport will serve as model of other airports in Japan. In terms of the share of refueling volume by airline at Narita Airport, the ratio of international airlines is 60%. This is an example of SAF introduction at Narita Airport. SAF is not yet commercially produced in Japan, and the SAF regularly delivered to Narita Airport are imported from Europe. The SAF is manufactured by Neste in Finland and will be unloaded by large import tankers to transit station in Japan. Then it will tranship to a small domestic tanker and transported to the Chiba port. From Chiba port, it is transported to airport by pipelines. Since ASTM standard SAF can be handled in the same way as ordinary jet fuel, all existing facilities are used for transportation. In November 2020, ANA delivered SAF to Narita Airport for the first time. Also from October 2022, Etihad Airways started using SAF, and JAL carried out the charter flight, the first sunrise of this year. We also accepted SAFs that were produced on trial basis in Japan. For demonstration productions, the quantity was so small that it was not possible to bring it to Chiba port by tanker, so we transport the SAF directly to Narita Airport by tank truck. The SAF transported by tank truck was brought to the refueling facility and loaded onto the aircraft using hydrant. Various companies in Japan are working on the demonstration production of SAFs, and we are planning to actively accept these SAFs that have been produced for demonstration purposes. We will work in close cooperation with stakeholders to become a model airport in Japan for the introduction of SAF. We will lead the effort to find agreement among stakeholders on the target SAF content ratio at Narita Airport. We will examine the construction of neat SAF mixing facility at the airport. We will study candidates local SAF production for local consumption around the airport in cooperation with local governments. These are the initiatives we at Narita Airport are taking to achieve sustainable growth. The aviation industry is considered to be a particularly difficult sector to decarbonize, but we will continue to work towards achieving our goals by pooling the wisdom of all parties involved. Thank you very much.
Takahiro, thank you very much. And I think you are underrating your English. First of all, we didn't lose anyone. So I cannot control a lot because I can only mute and unmute, and I can turn on my camera. The rest I cannot do anymore. I need to rely on Santi. But what I can see is we haven't lost any participants. So thank you so much. And I found also the presentation extremely structured. And thank you so much for the efforts. As said, I cannot access it, but I see there are some questions. So Santi, if you could please, you are in the Philippines at the moment, try to share questions. Is that possible for you? Santiago?
Yes,
Yes.
sure,
Hello.
sure. Sorry. I was probably finding the unmute button. So let me share. I mean, you should be able to access to Slido. You see on the, now you should be able to see my screen.
Yes,
where you
good.
have,
yes. Looking
okay.
good, Santi.
So there you should be able to see the QR code plus the passcode to access to Slido, where you will be able to see the ongoing questions that we have already received. We have 4 questions. You can vote up the questions that you prefer to be answered. Being this number, I think we will be able to manage most of them. I could start with the one that has a name on it. Ken, I see there is one for you.
Yes.
So
I may start to pick up some of them that I feel I could answer. So do you think a SAF book and claim approach will help to boost SAF uptake? Well, I think that's the only way for we start implementing. So yes, I suppose to boost SAF uptake, because there are airports that we'll see it's impossible. But if there is availability of booking claim system, which produced from globally or regionally, I don't know, networkly, then those airlines have a choice, and airports could actually participate. That will be the way ahead. So I think that's my answer to this. To ACI, you showed some document to facilitate the understanding of SAF by airport, but how else can ACI assist ASEAN interested airport in exploring SAF benefit for airports and promote the importance of the introduction and a local national government? Well, you see my slide for workshop for airports. We always do capacity building for this, and as I mentioned about the level 5, the new level for airport carbon accreditation, we even implemented the scope 3 part of it into the level 4 that I mentioned, and there will be guidance document for scope 3 once we have decided on the relevance of from the greenhouse gas protocol guidance to incorporate into the program. So there will be guidance in terms of helping airports into the scope 3, which will include the SAF, not just SAF, electricity aircraft, or even hydrogen side of it. And apart from that, I'd also mentioned the advocacy bit that will involving me mainly and my Director General to go to arenas that we can advocate and promote SAF uptake to governments or national governments, local or national governments within our jurisdiction, hence the Asia Pacific region. Thanks. Okay, I think next one is for Japanese government. Okay.
Yes, I think maybe I finish with the book and claim. I think, Ken, you have shown a good understanding, and some ways even challenging. If you, and probably is for you, I'm not really sure, but as you were referring to this, would you dare to give an explanation on, obviously, you are not the expert in the field, but as you were referring to book and claim, at least in the philosophy behind, and how to ensure, or how the system is needs to ensure this transparency and traceability. I don't know if you are prepared to give, obviously, a high-level answer. Now, we understand you are not very much involved in that. Obviously, the airports will have a role to play as part of the custody chain of the value or the SAF, but obviously, it's probably too early to go into details.
Yeah, I don't think I'll give anything that more deeper than what I said. It has to be agreed on, and it's unlikely to be the airport who control this. It's amongst the airlines and its few suppliers. Thanks.
Thanks, Ken. I know it was a bit stretching your role here. No, I mean, obviously, also on my side, no, this is something, I mean, the person who is asking this question is touching the fundamental elements in this book and claim. Has to be transparent, traceable, and at the end of the day, has to be trustworthy. Obviously, there will be a significant economic value behind this book and claim, and it needs to be ensured. And if I may here, it's also ensuring that there is no double booking or double claiming of the CO2 that is being reduced by certain portions or certain batches of SAF being claimed in either CORSIA or later on in, for example, in corporate or any other of the systems or programs that may exist. So it's quite challenging, but obviously, as it was already mentioned, this is the way to maximize the environmental performance of the fuel, of the sustainable aviation fuel. Okay, so let's move on. I think there are a few for Takahiro. Maybe starting Takahiro, I think as you have them on the screen, maybe you start with the ones you feel more aligned to your presentation or the ones that you can relate more information on. Please feel free to tell me which one and I will highlight it for the audience.
We link to our SAF plan program with one of government. We communicate. We communicate and discuss about our plan through committee led by government, which Narita Airport participate in. We discuss. Thank you.
You're muted, Santi.
Yeah, there is a new functionality that when I cycle the mic, I need to do it also on software, not only on hardware. Okay, so I think it was already addressed in the presentation how this is being articulated and also, let's say, motivated by the government and the need of engaging the governmental bodies in ensuring that this is, let's say, the right policies and also the right incentives. In this case, it was already mentioned, sorry, Ralph, the 10% 10% of SAF being requested to the airlines, at least to the major carriers, and how this is expected to incentivize the production. Yeah. Sorry, Ralph.
If I may, there's a second question for Takahiro. It is about the governmental incentives for the use of SAF. And let me extend this question a little bit, because I have exchanged on that question with Takahiro in advance. Maybe Takahiro could also tell us a little bit what the main motivation was for Narita to start looking into SAF to reduce the emissions. So what was the main motivation? Was it eventually an incentive? So
yes, It is highly important to introduce SAF as more than 70% of CO2 emission produced by the aircraft. So also, as the airlines are required to reduce CO2 emissions by the CORSIA scheme, it is indispensable for the airport to supply SAF to expand international aviation network. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So if I may also contribute, I think we are in the last week and this week, we've been visiting some of the Southeast Asian countries. And I think one of the recurrent topics, obviously around SAF, was the, let's say, how to incentivize SAF and what is the value for the airlines. And it was quite repetitive, the notion of, obviously, CORSIA is one of the schemes, but also these other paths that may result or make attractive SAF for the corporates as part of the scope 3. And I think Takahiro, with a slide on the percentage of the emissions depending on the scope under the Paris Agreement, it was quite clear that obviously that is a path as well for CO2 reduction in their scope 3. So it's a path that obviously many corporations are looking at. They are engaged and they are committed to at high level in their corporate values, and they are inscribing these targets as part of their of their request from their shareholders. So I think it's something important that is probably also providing some incentives to SAF.
Thank you. If I may also, because the second question is also an invitation to what Takahiro and I discussed before this webinar. And here it is asked, what advice does he have for airlines to push our airports in the Southeast Asian region to be prepared with the facilities for the future use of SAF? And this is very close to what Takahiro and I discussed when I asked him what are the main challenges they had to cope with it when they started to work with SAF. So this is very directly linked. So Takahiro, maybe you can go into that direction to describe the main challenges that you had. So, and from there we can derive probably also advices, right?
Coordination with several stakeholders in Narita Airport was very important. We elucidate to the fire department, customs, fuel handling agents using hydrant facilities, and airline when we first introduced SAF at Narita. Also, in issues press release for promoting purposes. Thank you.
Thank you.
If I may chime in, I thought that question was for me because
this is an open discussion. Please, whoever has something to say, kick in.
Right, it's like airlines to push our airports to be prepared and facilitated. Well, aside from the guidance document I showed, and aside of what the colleagues have been mentioned about collaboration, you can break forward the net zero goal that we are heading toward. It's just a matter of the when and where the roadmaps needs to be matched. So I think I mentioned before that the Singapore government had actually this proactive role, that as an example. They collect all the experts around the world and the airlines and manufacturers all together to discuss how the way forward for SAF. And this kind of unified a working group. It's an example for to work together, because I see a problematic problem. Scenarios like, do all the airlines in one airport have the same roadmap and goals, and which year they want the fuel, and how much it needs to be clearly defined together. So that's the kind of problem that needs to be discussed amongst everyone in that airport, and then each airport might not be the same. So that's what the problematic scenario that needs to be also be solved as well. So yeah, the advice is you need to work together locally and then expand to other airports as well for the airlines to work together within the same airport which supply the SAF. Oh, you're on mute again.
You muted, Santi?
Yes, all the time trouble with the with the same thing. So thanks a lot, Kat. Indeed, one of the also things that is coming up in all the discussions we have is that okay, you may have a lot of commonalities, but certainly you will have a lot of specificities of the implementation at local level, and this is where also obviously this dialogue, as you are mentioning, needs to happen and needs to engage all the stakeholders and making sure that you are finding the most balanced solution in order to achieve the objectives for that specific location, and of course at the state level, summing up all the points in local locations. We have one last question, Ralph. I don't know if you're able to see it.
I can see, but I cannot control. So
okay.
I need you for controlling it.
So maybe you address this again for Narita. I think it's maybe it's a misunderstanding. While the question is, does Narita only have SAF for airlines from 2030? What about, I understand, is the jet fuel, the normal jet fuel, will, I understand, discontinue by then? I think it's probably a slightly misunderstanding, but maybe Takahiro also can provide a bit of clarity.
No, no.
It's just the 10%, just right? The part of SAF.
We don't have SAF. Major oil company have. I see. I think major oil company will have SAF, and I don't know. Need jet fuel. We don't have need jet oil fuel. Okay, thank you.
Exactly, as the mandate is on 10% by 2030, if I understand well, there is a still need of, let's say, the other 90% basically being provided on the normal jet fuel, all the current jet fuel. So exactly, there is a progression, and that goes in parallel to how or what is the let's say the actual percentage of the blend that can be actually uplifted in the aircraft, but doesn't mean that the airport in this case will stop providing the normal jet fuel or whatever the other type available in this case in Narita. So Ken, maybe you complement this answer. I understand that is also happening in any other location. There is no location that you're aware that are planning for 100% SAF at a certain point in time, at least in the foreseeable future. Okay, I think it's already answered. I see there are no more questions. Ralph, we are 4 minutes above the hour. I think it's okay. We are within our tolerance for extending a bit the workshop.
Yes, and so, I will not, I have only 2 closing slides prepared, and I'm not going to share them because I will create a technical mess, I suppose. So I don't have cursor control anyway. Let me close it by saying once again, thank you so much for your support. This is what this format is living from, that we have colleagues from all over the world, in particular from the region, to share their experiences. Also, again, thanks to the loyal participants again for joining us. This is now our we have now the full number. It's a number 10 webinar. And that makes me asking the audience to please, if you have the time, to look into the survey that we have shared with you. If you open it, you will see also feedback we are asking you on the last 10 webinars we have organized, and then you can please tell us what was most relevant for you, or if you have any ideas. We're always looking for subjects, but we of course want to tailor it according to your needs. So what was most relevant for you in the past, and what would you be interested in for the future? If you could let us know that, then we could try to tailor the next webinars around your needs a bit better. So again, thanks to Ken, thanks to Takahiro, also to you, Santi, in the Philippines over there. Thanks for saving me here. And all the best to everybody. Have a good rest of the day. And I'm looking forward to continuing and to hopefully see you all again in the next webinars. So goodbye, everybody, from Cologne in Germany.
Bye.